You are standing at the edge of the world, where life continues far from modern cities and the land itself decides how people live, build, and endure through generations. Here, homes rise from mountainsides, float upon water, or rest beneath forests, shaped not by speed or convenience, but by patience, tradition, and survival. There are no shortcuts forward, only narrow paths, changing seasons, and journeys that demand time, where daily life follows nature instead of clocks. These villages do not feel like places left behind, but like worlds that chose a different rhythm, quieter, slower, and deeply connected to the land around them. So step beyond the familiar map and enter a way of life where simplicity remains powerful, community still matters, and living on the edge feels complete. Hoi An, Vietnam. Hoi An is a historic riverside town in central Vietnam, shaped by its past as a trading port, where narrow-frontage wooden shophouses were arranged in continuous rows to support commerce and natural airflow in a tropical climate. The core area preserves a dense fabric of traditional buildings with timber frames, tiled roofs, interior courtyards, and beam structures that limit heat gain, extend shade along streets, and keep ventilation working without mechanical systems. Nearby waterways and embankments influence local microclimate and also explain how river transport once connected inland goods to coastal shipping routes. Communal assembly halls and religious structures record long-distance merchant exchange through axial layouts, ceremonial gateways, courtyards, and carved wooden interiors that supported both social organization and business networks. At the scale of urban form, Hoi An shows how compact planning, local materials, and river-based logistics can sustain a long-lived commercial town. Way Rebo sits high on the slopes of Flores in Indonesia as a compact circular village where cone roof houses stand close together around a central open space used for community routines and daily coordination. The signature architecture is a multi-level timber structure with a thick, natural fiber roof, providing strong rain protection and thermal buffering while stacking living, storage, and crop handling functions vertically on limited terrain. The village layout keeps direct short links from each house to the central ground, making internal movement fast and easy to monitor, while the outer edge transitions quickly into forest and steep slope, so the settlement boundary stays clearly defined. Daily work and shared activities revolve around the center, with agreed zones for sitting, drying, and staging that help keep space orderly when the number of people increases in certain periods. From wide viewpoints, Way Rebo shows a mountain village model where geometric layout, house form, and a central space combine into a recognizable system that operates efficiently in a forested highland environment. Ban Rak Thai is a highland village in northern Thailand organized around a central lake, where low-rise homes and small shop rows follow the shoreline to form a continuous pedestrian spine. Many buildings use timber and light masonry with moderately sloped roofs for rain runoff and street-facing fronts toward the walkway, and water helps separate residential zones, service edges, and shared public space. The village layout emphasizes yards and verandas used for drying, storage, and goods preparation, while short lanes connect housing clusters to the lakeside route for fast and easy internal movement. Steep surrounding terrain limits flat buildable ground, so housing and services concentrate within a compact walkable area, and local viewpoints make the elevation-based distribution of buildings easy to see. From wide viewpoints, Ban Rak Thai reads as a mountain lake village model where the shoreline path, building clusters, and public space combine into a compact system with clear functions suited to highland terrain constraints. Subak Rice Terraces Villages, Indonesia. In Bali, Subak Rice Terrace villages operate through the Subak system, a community-based water management method that schedules and distributes irrigation, so fields receive water in a coordinated, farm-driven sequence. Water is diverted from streams and canals, then split through small gates and terrace channels, controlling flow on sloped terrain to limit erosion and keep rice paddies at stable moisture levels. The defining feature is not a single structure, but a connected network of terraces, waterways, and shared rules that function as both irrigation engineering and a local governance system for cultivation. In 2012, Bali's Subak cultural landscape was inscribed by UNESCO, highlighting the system as a recognized model of agriculture organized around water governance and social cooperation. From above, the terraces form continuous contour bands that show how precise water planning and local materials can transform hilly land into productive stepped fields. Sapa, Vietnam. Sapa is a mountain town in northwestern Vietnam, set on high terrain where average annual temperatures are noticeably lower than in the lowlands, creating distinct living and farming conditions within a tropical latitude. Steep slopes push agriculture to follow the contours, so terraced fields are built along level lines to hold soil, limit erosion, and control runoff, turning valley sides into clear, stepped cultivation surfaces visible from a distance. The surrounding highland environment changes quickly with elevation, with evergreen forest, open grass slopes, and wet ground zones forming a readable sequence of landscapes along mountain roads. The town functions as a transit node in a road network shaped by passes, where weekly markets, farm goods, and handicraft exchange create a regular cycle of local trade. As a case study, Sapa shows how settlement, transport, and agriculture can be organized under strong slope constraints and a cooler mountain climate. Vang Vieng is a valley town in Laos, where settlement growth aligns with a main road spine and riverside routes, creating a clear orientation for transport, services, and everyday community routines. Low-rise housing clusters, guest houses, and service buildings often form linear bands with street-facing frontages for direct access, while rear spaces use yards and open gaps to support ventilation in humid heat. Limestone karst ridges rise sharply around the built area. So many viewpoints reveal a distinct boundary between developed land and cliff walls, highlighting how the town fits into a narrow valley footprint. River activity and footpaths connect residential areas to flat ground and mountain bases, producing a mixed mobility network where vehicles concentrate on the main road, while short links rely on walking and small boats. From wide viewpoints, Vang Vieng reads as a medium-scale town with concentrated density, where streets, building clusters, and open spaces are arranged to operate efficiently within terrain limited by limestone formations. Inle Lake floating villages. Across a broad lake surface in Myanmar, Inle Lake floating villages operate as a stilt settlement system fully dependent on water transport, where homes, jetties, and raised wooden walkways run alongside boat routes on open water. Many houses stand on tall piles to adapt to seasonal water level shifts, and lake-facing fronts function as working platforms for docking, drying tools, repairs, and daily household handling. A key visible feature is the floating garden method, where vegetation mats and lake mud are anchored into long beds on the water, placing cultivation beside the village and reducing reliance on land-based fields. Links between village clusters follow natural channels and narrow inlets supported by transfer docks and wooden bridges, so transport trade, and community services are organized primarily along water lines. From wide viewpoints, Inle Lake floating villages appear as interwoven bands of stilt housing, floating plots, and boat lanes, showing how living space, mobility, and production can be structured when water is the main infrastructure. Pulwong villages are a mountain village system in northern Vietnam shaped around terraced fields and narrow valleys where homes, drying yards, and footpaths follow the terrain to reduce steep climbs and support farming access. Housing clusters are often placed on hillsides or along valley edges, facing layered terraces, and they connect through small paths that run beside field boundaries, streams, and local village routes. Wood and bamboo are common building materials, and many stilt houses lift the living floor for ventilation and moisture control, while the space around each home is organized for storage, small livestock areas, and practical work zones tied to agriculture. Water is guided from mountain springs and stream channels through narrow ditches and stone-lined runs, supplying both terraces and daily use and linking water flow to the placement of paths and homes. From wide viewpoints, Pulwong villages appear as settlement points, anchored on green slopes between terrace bands that curve along contour lines, showing how a community organizes living space and production in a forested mountain landscape. Kampong Phloc, Cambodia. The key to understanding Kampong Phloc is seasonal water range, because this Tonle Sap lakeside community is organized to function when floodwater expands widely in the wet season and contracts in the dry season. Homes are typically built on tall stilts to stay above high water, creating a lower level that changes role by season, serving as access space during floods and becoming usable ground for storage and daily work when water recedes. Mobility depends heavily on boats during inundation, while dirt paths and open yards become more visible in the dry months, showing how local infrastructure switches mode with the hydrological cycle. Livelihoods link closely to fisheries and water-related services, since Tonle Sap's flood pulse supports high fish productivity and broad habitat for water birds. As an adaptation case, Kampong Fluk demonstrates how elevated structures, lightweight materials, and seasonal routines can stabilize settlement life under large water level variation. Mae Kampong, Thailand. In a forested mountain valley in northern Thailand, Mae Kampong is organized around steep slopes and a small stream corridor, with housing placed along the hillside to limit use of flat ground and follow natural drainage. Cooler conditions than the lowlands and consistently high humidity influence building choices, so ventilation, steep rain-shedding roofs, and slightly raised floors are practical features for moisture control. Movement inside the village relies on short, sloped paths that link house clusters with shared spaces, reflecting how circulation is constrained by narrow terrain. Household-scale farming and hillside gardens use small steps and runoff channels to hold soil, reduce slide risk, and keep vegetation cover stable around the settlement. As an adaptation case, Mae Kampong shows how slope, humidity, and water flow can shape housing layout, production space, and small-scale infrastructure in a mountain community. Cat Cat Village. On a steep highland slope in Vietnam, Cat Cat Village takes shape as a terraced settlement where homes follow the terrain and stone paths curve along the hillside to form a clear movement line from higher to lower levels. Traditional houses often use timber frames with steep roofs and raised floors to limit moisture, while spaces around each home are arranged for handcraft work, drying, and crop storage suited to cool temperatures and seasonal rainfall. Small water runs and natural flow lines act as spatial boundaries and supply daily water needs, while also supporting household-scale production activities tied directly to terrain and water access. A network of trails, stone steps, and open viewpoints makes the vertical layering of the settlement easy to read, with housing positions, paths, and gaps arranged to reduce movement conflicts and use limited land efficiently. From wide viewpoints, Cat Cat Village shows a medium-density slope settlement model, where living space, circulation, and work areas link into a recognizable system within a forested mountain landscape. Pai, Thailand. Pai is a small valley town in northern Thailand, in Mae Hong Son province, set in folded mountain terrain where road travel follows passes and continuous curves, shaping a compact urban footprint. The area follows a monsoon climate, with the wet season producing fast runoff on steep slopes and the dry season lowering surface moisture, so surrounding vegetation color and stream levels often show clear seasonal change. Valley farming uses flatter strips along the river corridor, while nearby hills act as an ecological buffer that helps stabilize soils and support local water supply for settlement. The town's layout concentrates around a main road and market zone, where lodging, food services, and short-distance motorbike travel fit the scale of a narrow valley setting. As a destination, Pai offers a straightforward example of how terrain, seasonal climate, and mountain road networks shape daily life and local economy in a valley community. Luang Prabang is a heritage city in Laos with a low-rise residential structure where traditional neighborhoods follow narrow street lines and sit among gardens and timber houses that shape a clear daily living pattern. Many home clusters include inner yards and wide verandas, with timber construction and steep roofs designed for fast rain runoff, while street-facing facades create semi-public edges for small trade and community interaction. Religious and civic buildings act as spatial anchors that guide movement and gathering points, and the urban street grid stays compact enough for walking and close observation of architecture and street activity. Under a tropical monsoon climate, buildings prioritize ventilation, shade, and lightweight materials, so the cityscape often combines low roofs, large trees, and open gaps that reduce heat during warmer periods. From wide viewpoints, Luang Prabang reads as a walkable city model with moderate density where streets, housing, and public spaces connect tightly to sustain a stable urban routine. Kampong Ayer is a stilt village system built over the water in Brunei, where homes, raised walkways, jetties, and small docks create a continuous internal network. Houses are often arranged in tight clusters and linked by long corridors and footbridges across channels, allowing daily movement by walking above the water or by small boats without leaving the village space. Community facilities are integrated into the settlement structure, including schools, mosques, service points, and shared spaces, so routines unfold on the water with clear patterns shaped by school hours, prayer times, and family schedules. Building on timber and concrete piles helps the settlement adapt to tides and currents, while keeping walkways positioned above typical water levels for safer access and maintenance. From wide viewpoints, Kampong Ayer reads as a long band of stilt houses along the waterfront, with transport boats and walkway lines interwoven, showing how a community organizes housing, mobility, and public services in a river environment. Vigan is a historic city in the Philippines with a clear old town street structure where low-rise building rows follow a grid plan and create continuous frontages for daily living, trade, and services within the core. Many houses use the ground floor for shops and storage, and the upper level for living space, with thick walls, large windows, and timber balconies that support airflow and light control in a tropical climate. Street space is often moderately narrow, with hard paving, allowing pedestrians to read architecture block by block, while inner courtyards and rear setbacks help separate household activity from the main circulation line. Continuous building alignment turns key streets into commercial corridors, where awnings, storefront openings, and signage at street level set the rhythm of activity across the day. From wide viewpoints, Vigan shows a heritage city model with high walkability, where streets, housing, and commerce are tightly organized to preserve the continuity of the historic district. Muang Ngoi sits away from major road corridors in Laos as a small riverside settlement where low-rise homes form a linear band and face the water to keep direct access to boats and docking points. Internal paths are short and link the landing area, housing clusters, and shared spaces, so most movement happens on foot, while the river functions as the main transport corridor connecting outward. Many homes use verandas and small yards as multi-purpose zones for cooking, repair, sorting, and storage, creating a layout that can be read through daily activity without complex infrastructure. Limestone mountain terrain surrounds the built area and sets a clear boundary that limits expansion, so housing density and placement concentrate on the flatter ground closest to the riverbank. From wide viewpoints, Muang Ngoi shows a river-dependent village model, where the boat landing, footpath network, and housing clusters combine into a compact and practical system shaped by narrow terrain constraints. Kampong Pelang sits in Cambodia's seasonally flooded lowlands as a large stilt village where long rows of houses stand on high piles to handle strong water level swings between dry and wet periods. The settlement structure follows road and channel lines, using raised walkways, boat landings, and open space under floors for docking, repair, storage, and household work when water retreats. Many houses use large, steep roofs and open facades to improve ventilation and shade, and building orientation often considers current direction and boat access to keep transport workable during high water. When water rises, movement shifts primarily to boats and channel routes, and when water drops, ground paths and underfloor yards become active work and living zones, creating a seasonal space use pattern that is easy to observe. From wide viewpoints, Kampong Kliang shows how a community organizes housing, mobility, and daily routines under direct control of a flood cycle environment. Tonle Sap Floating Villages, Cambodia. Tonle Sap floating villages are water-based communities around Tonle Sap Lake, where daily infrastructure is designed for large seasonal water level shifts and a rare flow reversal between the lake and the Tonle Sap River. During the wet season, higher Mekong discharge can push water back up the Tonle Sap River into the lake, expanding the flooded area and making boats, floating platforms, and stilt-adapted structures practical for transport and access. This flood pulse supports a highly productive freshwater ecosystem, and the wider Tonle Sap region was designated a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve in 1997. As a settlement model, the villages illustrate how housing and services can be organized around a moving shoreline, with anchoring, lightweight materials, and moisture-tolerant construction shaping stability. In geographic terms, the site shows how human habitation can follow a hydrological cycle rather than a fixed road network. Barrio Village, Malaysia. In the interior highlands of Sarawak, Barrio is shaped by an unusually level plateau within surrounding mountains, allowing a concentrated settlement pattern and valley-scale wet rice cultivation without expanding onto steep slopes. At roughly 1,000 meters above sea level, average conditions are cooler than the coast, while tropical rainfall maintains surface water and damp soils, making farm scheduling and drainage control essential for stable paddies. As a high plateau settlement model, Barrio shows how land, water, and access infrastructure are balanced in a mountain enclosed environment. Tenganan Village differs from many organically grown settlements by using a clear linear layout where traditional housing clusters align along a village spine and face shared space to manage community routines. Straight internal paths run continuously through the settlement, creating meeting points at regular intervals, while open courts between housing rows act as outdoor rooms for ceremonies, assemblies, and scheduled activities. Homes often include gates, boundary walls, and inner yards that separate private space from public frontage, and local materials with sloped roofs support quick water runoff during seasonal rain. Movement is designed primarily for walking, with short links between houses, yards, and common areas, which helps keep spatial order stable when visitor or participant numbers increase during festival periods. From wide viewpoints, Tenganan Village shows a traditional planned village model where a walkable spine, housing rows, and a sequence of shared courts combine into a recognizable system that operates efficiently in a tropical setting.